Peace. What's going on, y'all? What's the word? How y'all living? How y'all feeling? Jamar, peace. What's going on with you, man? How y'all holding up? Got a real quick build that I want to do. Probably give myself about 30 minutes, so I'm going to give people a chance to tune on in and tap into your boy, man, before I really start building on this topic for the day. Like I said, it's going to be a real short build. Got about 30 minutes to spare, and I just want to get some things off my chest. D, peace. What's going on with you? So I got a real short one today, man, but it's still gonna be effective and you're still gonna be able to take plenty of jewels from it. Justin Montel, peace. What's going on with y'all? How y'all living? Magic Realms, peace. Idris Camara, peace. What's going on with you? Nick Antoinette, what's going on? How y'all living? How y'all feeling? Hopefully you all are having a productive Tuesday thus far. Static Sand, peace. What's going on? Hopefully y'all are having a productive day thus far, man. Getting some things done. Man. But I'm in one of those moods where I feel like venting. Swag Yusuf. Not venting, but I'm more so just about to zone out, man, and really talk about this topic for the day. Really want to talk a lot about overcoming fears, man. And I feel like I've said in previous videos, fear is one of those things that tends to hold people back. It tends to hold people back from achieving or activating that greatness that's lying dormant within you. Fear is like the #1 impediment or hindrance to progress. And I've noticed that's on a personal note, man, just analyzing the lives of people, man. A lot of people don't reach that next level, and a lot of people don't get that life that they deserve simply because they are living in fear. So a lot of people don't reach certain levels, certain states, whatever the case may be, because they are afraid. They are letting that fear consume them. That fear is overwhelming them. They are accepting and embracing that fear. The only way to really reach that next level in life is to overcome the fear, to be able to face your fears, whatever the fears may be. But if you don't overcome those fears, you will always remain stagnant. You will remain stagnant, complacent. And that is the formula for misery. Being stagnant, being complacent. It's the formula for misery. We focus on evolution, elevation, progress. That's what we focus on, improvement. Those are things that we focus on. Those are the things that we embrace. We don't like staying complacent. We don't like being comfortable. Got to be uncomfortable. And that's one of the things in regards to facing your fears. You have to be able to be uncomfortable. That's only going to build character, build strength, build power, things of that nature. So you gotta be comfortable with being uncomfortable type deal. Fun Gay Peace, what's going on with you? So like I said, man, I see a lot of people, man, just failing to take that leap in life that they know that they need to take. And it's all because of fear, man. So whatever it is that you fear, we all have fears, man, or we all have fears. Like I had the biggest fear that I had in regards to the leap that I made with my whole gym and whatnot, man. One of the fear, like I was comfortable with that consistent paycheck, man. So I had this fear of leaving corporate America and not making enough to make the ends meet type deal. So it was that security for me. I felt like I had that security working that corporate job when at the end of the day, I knew that it was an illusion back then, but I hadn't accepted that reality. So I was definitely believing in the illusion of security, and that's one thing that was holding me back in the corporate world, man. I just falling for that security illusion. I was like, man, I'm more secure getting a steady paycheck every 2 weeks. If I go out on my own, it's gonna be that uncertainty in regards to getting paid on time, getting paid consistently, and things of that nature, man. So I was thinking about that, and that stuff started to consume me, and I was definitely living in that fear. So I had to overcome that fear. I had to deal with that fear. Miami Soldier, peace. What's going on? Zucko, what's going on with you, my brother? So fear was something I had to overcome, man. And I just feel like, Sweet Tea, what's going on? I just feel like that applies to everybody. More than likely, if you got a level in life that you need to reach that you haven't reached yet, one of the things that's probably holding you back is that fear, is that doubt, just being worried. Those things are probably holding you down more than you possibly know, more than you are willing to admit. So I came up with a little 5-step process in regards to overcoming your fear. And you can just apply this to whatever fear it is that you may have, man. You can definitely use this on a business level in order to really manifest your dreams and turn your dreams into reality. This 5-step process is real big. And I just came up with it, man. I was doing some reading and I read something about fearlessness, and I just thought about what are some steps, what are some things that people can do to just overcome fear? And that's what led to the motivation or the inspiration to do this particular video. So now I just want to give y'all or share with you all the steps that I came up with in regards to overcoming the fears. So definitely take these steps, man, and just apply them to your life. Whatever it is that you may fear, especially on that business level. Like I said, if you're striving to take your finances or your business to the next level, definitely adhere to these 5 steps, because I'm telling you, these 5 steps will definitely take you to that next level just mentally and even physically. But the first step in regards to overcoming the fear, obviously you all should know this one, is acknowledging the fear in the first place. You want to just acknowledge the fear. That's the first step, man. Just acknowledging that you have this fear, whatever the fear may be. If you have a fear of heights, acknowledge the fact that you have this fear of heights. Don't live in this, don't be delusional. Don't lie to yourself and act like you have no fears. We all have fears that we have to face. We all have them. So don't lie to yourself. So you got to acknowledge the reality. I have a fear of heights. I have a fear of failure. Whatever the case may, I have a fear of dying. Whatever the case may be, acknowledge the fear. Acknowledge that you have the fear. That's the first step. You must acknowledge it. You cannot be in denial in regards to the fear. Don't try to justify why you don't fool with heights. Don't try to justify why you don't want to take that leap. No, you're afraid of failure. You're not about to, like what I was doing, I was justifying it by saying, okay, I'm getting this paycheck every 2 weeks. That was me justifying my fear of failure. So I was like, all right, man, if I eliminate this corporate job, then it's going to be an uncertainty surrounding my revenue. So I was using that to justify my fear of failure, because at the end of the day, all I was afraid of was failing, taking that leap and me not succeeding. That was really the bigger issue. That was really the bigger problem. So we're going to find reasons to justify that fear. So when we find the reasons to justify it in our minds, it's no longer a fear. It's a reason as to why we're not rocking with it. It's a reason as to why we're not fooling with it, instead of us looking at it for what it is, as a fear. So when you start justifying it, you eliminate the fear aspect. You're trying to mask it. So don't do that. Just acknowledge it as a fear. You got to acknowledge the fear. You got to acknowledge it. Tell yourself, admit that you are afraid of whatever it is that you are afraid of. Admit it. Whatever it is that you're battling with, whatever it is that you are afraid of, admit it. Admit it to yourself. Second thing that you must do, once you admit it, once you acknowledge the fear, then you must do the knowledge to the fear. You must study the fear. D Monty Magic, peace, what's going on with you, my brother? You must study the fear. You must do the knowledge to the fear. You must research the fear. See, a lot of times, basically, we fear what we don't understand. So once you gain that understanding, that eliminates the fear. So the understanding is crucial in regards to whatever it is that you fear. You need to strive to gain an understanding of whatever it is that you are afraid of. If you are afraid of failure, study failure. Study people that have failed. Study the people who have succeeded, and you will see that failure was a formula in regards to them succeeding. So study that. Study that. If you have a fear of a certain type of animal, study that animal. I'm telling you, the more that you learn, the more that you find out about whatever it is that you fear, the less you will fear it. That understanding tends to eradicate fear. So studying that fear is crucial. Researching that fear is crucial. Doing the knowledge to that fear is crucial. Whatever it is, that you are afraid of, I'm telling you right now, once you acknowledge it, once you admit it, it's time to study it. So basically, what was my fear? My fear was failure. But then I masked it by saying I had this level of security on this corporate job. So what did I start doing? I started studying ways. I started studying business people. I started studying business more. I started studying entrepreneurship because I had this fear of failure. And then I tried to justify by saying I'm getting this paycheck every 2 weeks, so it's security. So I said, okay, how do people succeed in business? How do entrepreneurs succeed when they facing the same type of fear that I'm facing? How did they overcome that fear? So I started studying that. I started studying how people succeed once they left their job. The more that I studied, the more that I learned, the more comfortable I became with the fact that I needed to leave this job. So I was no longer afraid of leaving the job. The more I studied it, the more I studied entrepreneurship, the more I studied ownership, the more I just studied bossing up, I came across people having that same fear. At first, they was contemplating leaving that job, and then they was thinking about the security, and then they just made that leap. So I just studied how they overcame that fear. So that the more I studied it, the more I started to extract patterns and determine patterns. So, and that's another thing too that comes with studying and researching. That's mathematics. When you start studying and researching, what you are looking for are patterns. So I started studying all these business people, all these entrepreneurs, and all I was looking for was a steady pattern. What did all of these people do? What did the majority of these people do to overcome that fear? And basically, the majority in regards to my fear, which was just failure, they just made the leap. They just made the leap. They just did it. That's what they did. That's what the majority did. They just did it. They said it wasn't the right time to basically quit your job. There's no such thing as a right time to quit your job and make that leap into ownership, into owning your own business, into entrepreneurship. You just got to do it. You got to take the risk. The bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. That was the consensus. All of them were saying that for the most part. So I just acted on that. So when you study in your fear, you got to study, you got to extract the pattern from it. You got to find the pattern. You got to find the pattern. Carly, peace, what's going on? And most definitely, I'm doing fabulous. And Zucko, that book is peace. I read that book myself. That book is peace. But yeah, when you do the knowledge to your fear, you're gonna gain that understanding. Once you have that understanding, again, that eradicates the fear, because typically we fear that in which we don't understand. Donna C, peace, what's going on? So that studying aspect is big. It's real pivotal. Because again, like I said, most of us, we fear what we don't understand. Once you gain that understanding, then that fear is eliminated, that fear is eradicated. You no longer fear that because now you understand it. So now, once you admit the fear, acknowledge the fear, then you study, research, do the knowledge to the fear. The third step, now it's time to face the fear. It's time to face the fear. So whatever it is, whatever the fear is, after you done studied it, after you done admitted the fear, now it's time for you to come face to face with the fear. This is the uncomfortable part, when it's time to face that fear. So like I'm going back to my example. My fear was failure. I was like, man, I don't want to just leave. And then it was security. I didn't want to leave this job because I was getting this consistent paycheck. If I left this job when it did my own thing, I wouldn't get this consistent paycheck. That's what my mind was believing and accepting at the time. So the only way for me to face that actual fear was for me to take the leap and just leave my job. That's the only way that I was going to be able to face the fear. So that's exactly what I did. That's going to be the most uncomfortable part of the process. When it's time for you to actually face the reality and face the fear and come heads up with that fear, heads on with the fear. You must do it. You must do it. After you done studied it, it's one thing to just study it, but then it's another thing to implement what you have studied and come face to face with what you have studied. Whole different ball game. Whole different ball game. Now it's hands on. It's just like when we had to do the knowledge to how to drive a car, like taking the permit test. You reading that manual, everything sounds good. You read the manual, you understanding what you've read, but when you get behind that wheel, man, it's a different ball game. It's a different ball game when you actually get inside that car and you start to drive. It's a whole different ball game opposed to just reading about it and then taking a test on it. When you get behind that wheel, different ball game. So it's the same thing with your fear. When you research that fear, when you do the knowledge to the fear, that's cool. But now you got to get that hands-on experience with the fear, and that's step number 3. You got to get out of your comfort zone and come face to face with that fear. And that's the problem a lot of people have. They don't reach that step typically. They don't reach that step typically. We might can admit it. We might can research it and study it a little bit. But in order for us to face it, now it's time to get out of that comfort zone. It's time to get out of that comfort zone. And a lot of people don't like to get out of that comfort zone. We love being comfortable. We love being complacent. We love being stagnant. So in order to face that fear, you got to be uncomfortable. You got to be uncomfortable. Percy, appreciate that donation. Percy, okay. So you said you was afraid of eating in front of other kids. So it's a greater reason for that. So you weren't necessarily afraid of eating in front of other kids. You may have had a fear of like the perception of other people. So it's an underlying cause behind that. Why were you afraid of eating in front of other kids? What were you afraid of? That's the bigger fear. When you answer that why to that one, that's the bigger fear. So you were afraid of eating in front of other kids for a reason. So what's the reason behind you being afraid of eating in front of other kids? But the third step, facing that fear. Head-on collision with whatever it is that you are afraid of. Head-on collision with it. Got to get out of your comfort zone. Another thing that I also struggle with, I deal with anxiety a little bit, man. I'm not too fond of like crowds. So like going to stores, going to grocery stores when it's overly crowded, I'm not too fond of those particular situations. I don't like crowds. And one of the things that I have been doing recently here is sometimes I just go in that store, man. I just go inside, man. When it's crowded, parking lot full, just gonna go in there, man. Just gotta face that reality. Gotta face it. It's uncomfortable. It'll be easier for me to send somebody else into that store to do the work for me. But no, I gotta face that, man. I can't keep letting that conquer me. I can't keep saying, well, I just don't deal with crowds like that. No, then that's controlling me. That has more power over me. I'm more powerful than that. So I just gotta go in there even though I don't want to. But I gotta face that reality. Now, I'm not too fond of being in those type of situations, being amongst those crowds, but I gotta do it. I gotta do it. I got to get out of that comfort zone. So I deal with that a lot. I wrestle with that a lot. So sometimes, man, when I pull up to a spot and I see that the parking lot is crowded and full, I got to sit in my car, man. I got to like literally prep myself mentally to go deal with the crowd. Like that's how bad it is. But it's like at the same time, man, I know that that's building strength and that's building character for me. Just facing that crowd. Just facing that crowd. Like every time I face that crowd, I'm getting stronger because I'm not letting that anxiety control me and rule me. Like I have control over that. So I got to exercise that power. And I see I'm not the only one that deals with anxiety on that level. But let me get to step number 4 real quick. Once you face the fear, step number 4, this is almost inevitable. But you gotta allow it to happen. You gotta allow the fear to knock you down. Because that's gonna happen. That's gonna happen. When you face that fear, you're not gonna conquer that fear the first time that you face it. That fear gonna knock you down. It's probably gonna knock you down multiple times. You have to allow that to happen though. You have to allow that fear to knock you down. You have to allow yourself to be uncomfortable. It's going to hurt. You're going to be in pain. You're going to struggle with it. But you have to allow that to happen. So once you face the fear, that fear going to hit you in the face and you might go down. You might go down, which is going to lead to step number 5. You have to get back up. I know that sounds cliche, but once you allow that fear to knock you down, once you get back up, the fear has now been conquered. Once you allow that fear to knock you down and then you get back up, the fear has now been conquered because you was not afraid to get back up to face that fear for a second time, to face it for a third time. You get up enough times, man, you're going to eventually conquer that fear. So the moment that you get back up after being knocked down, it's no longer a fear. You have now conquered it. It's no longer a fear because you are no longer afraid of it. You are no longer afraid to face it. When you don't allow it to knock you down, that fear still lingers. That fear still lingers, man. You're afraid to get punched in the face. You're afraid to get punched in the side. You're afraid to get knocked out. You're afraid to get knocked down. You're afraid to take that punch. You're afraid. Allow that fear to knock you down. Allow that fear to hit you in the face and knock you out for a second. And once you get back up, the moment that you get back up, the fear has now been eradicated. The fear has now been eliminated. You have now conquered it in 5 simple steps. Admitting that you have the fear, acknowledging the fear, saying, I am afraid of this. I have a fear of this. Then you do the knowledge to the fear. You strive to gain an understanding of that in which you fear. Because a lot of us, we fear the unknown. So when it becomes known, you ease the tension a little bit. And that makes it easier to face the fear, which is step number 3. Then you go to step number 4, allow that fear to knock you down because it's going to happen. And then step number 5, all you got to do is get back up. And now you have conquered your fear. You have overcome your fears or your fear in 5 simple steps, man. It's really that simple in regards to overcoming the fear. But like a lot of times, it's either we don't even get to 1, we don't even acknowledge that we have a fear, we delusional, we claim we ain't afraid of anything, knowing good and well that that is a lie, knowing good and well that that's just deception, that's not true, that's fiction, it's a fallacy. So people may not even get to step number 1 because they think they're not afraid of anything and they think they don't have any type of fear whatsoever. And then some people stop at 3. They don't want to face the fear because it requires them to be uncomfortable. And that's too much for certain people. That's too much for certain people. Orlando, peace, what's going on with you? So Percy, and that could be the underlying fear right there. You were just afraid of crowds. So it really wasn't that you was afraid of eating around kids. You were afraid of the crowds. You didn't like the crowds. You didn't like the commotion. You didn't like the crowd. So you just so happened to be amongst the crowd when you were eating. And then you associated that with saying, okay, I'm probably afraid of eating around kids. No, you're afraid of crowds. If you were eating by yourself, you would be good. If you was eating around maybe 2 people, you might be all right. But when it becomes a gang of people or a crowd of people, now you have a problem. Yeah, Tavana, and we tend to do that. We tend to do that way too often, suppress the emotion. Especially us men, we tend to do that way too often. We tend to do that way too often, man. Like we feel like it's soft to be afraid of something. We feel like that's soft to admit that you are afraid of something. Well, you can't conquer it if you don't admit it. Being afraid of some fear is temporary, man, but like we feel like that's soft, man, to admit that you have a fear. So we suppress that. We suppress that energy, and that's never good. It's never good to suppress that energy. Again, that's one of the main causes of disease. Suppressing that energy, suppressing that negative energy, unresolved conflicts type deal. You got to resolve those conflicts. If you don't resolve those conflicts and keep suppressing that energy, you setting yourself up for cancer. You setting yourself up for heart disease, diabetes, and all of those type of things, man. You setting yourself up. That's stressful. That's stressing that's stressing your internal system. It's stress. Yeah, Funge, that's exactly what I'm alluding to. Like, man, like we have been conditioned to believe that it's soft, to fear anything. So we walk around as if we are not afraid of anything, and we basically lie to ourselves. We lie to ourselves, man. We all have fears, man. We all have something that we are afraid of. We all have stuff that we are not afraid of. We might try to use different words to describe it, but at the end of the day, it's a fear. We may say we don't like something, we don't like crowds. At the end of the day, we afraid of those crowds. We have a fear, a phobia of those crowds. Oh, Master Tube, that's peace, man. That's a nice journey to embark on, man. Hopefully you stay with it, stay committed. Stay with it and stay committed. That vegan lifestyle is what's up. Stay with it, stay committed. And then also stay tuned, man. I'll be giving you, of course, obviously, with all the videos that I do, I'm gonna definitely be giving you more pointers in regards to just adhering to that type of lifestyle. And you know what's crazy? Talking about veganism and talking about suppressing emotions and just detoxing and cleansing yourself. One thing that I learned when I've been doing the knowledge recently, and one thing that I came across, which was interesting, it was basically saying the healthier you are, like the healthier that you eat, the cleaner your inside becomes, like the harder it becomes, or the harder it is to suppress those emotions. So I found that to be kind of interesting. They basically say the healthier that you eat, the healthier that you become, the harder it is to suppress emotions. So they say a person that eats healthy, they have a hard time suppressing emotions. So those type of people can tend to look emotional if they don't gain control over their emotions and things of that nature. So it's harder for a person that's like healthy, that's eating healthy, to suppress those emotions. So a lot of times, a lot of people may label those type of individuals emotional because they can't really suppress their emotions. They got to let it out. And I didn't know that was directly correlating with what you consume and how you can, like, how healthy you are. I didn't know that. I came across that information. Sherwin, appreciate that donation. So I thought that to be kind of interesting. I actually feel like that's a reality. I just didn't think about it, and I didn't connect the dots myself. But it's like the more detoxing that I do, the more cleanses that I do, like the harder it is for me to suppress those emotions, suppress those feelings. Stuff just comes out. Oh, Jamar, most definitely. I can relate to that. I can definitely relate to that. The fear of not succeeding. And that's what that fear right there holds a lot of people back. It's basically the fear of failure. A lot of us are afraid to fail. So therefore, we will not embark on endeavors that we know we need to embark on because we are afraid to fail. We are afraid to fail. So we stick with that. And I'm gonna just talk about the business world. We stick to that comfortable 9 to 5. Like if you go out on your own, everything is going to revolve around you. So when your business fails, you feel like you failed. So a lot of times that's why we don't embark on those type of endeavors, man, because we are afraid of failure. I know it's too many people that I know that are great at a lot of things, man. I know a bunch of people that can just cook. I know a bunch of people, man, that's just good at math, just like a lot of things that they are good at. And I'm like, man, why you don't make a business out of it? And they give me excuse after excuse after excuse. When at the end of the day, it boils down to them basically being afraid to fail. They don't want to fail, but they try to justify it. Oh, I don't want to make a business out of my passion and stuff like that. That sounds good. But at the end of the day, you just afraid to fail. You're afraid that if you step out on your own and you do this cooking on your own, that it won't be as big as you would like it to be. So you try to mask that and say, well, I don't want to make a business out of my passion. I don't want to make a business out of something that I love to do. I don't want to make a business out of my hobby. That's how we try to justify our fears at times. All in deal with it. You gotta get to the root of it. You gotta get to the root. It's just like I don't too much rock with crowds, man. I just had to get to the root of it. I had to figure out where it came from, what it stems from, and then I just had to start facing it. I had to just start making myself be amongst the crowd. It's repetition. Repetition is king. The more I deal with crowds, the easier it becomes to manage myself within those crowds. The easier it becomes to deal with the crowds. The more I immerse myself within those crowds, the easier it becomes to just navigate within those crowds. So it's repetition at the end of the day. It's repetition. Yeah, Tavon, those two go neck and neck. It's like 1A, 1B. The fear of failure and the fear of what everybody else thinks about you. Because then that fear of failure also has that attached to it. You afraid to fail and you afraid to have others witness you fail type deal. So those are neck and neck. Those are neck and neck. And sometimes when you're afraid of what people may think, you're afraid that people may view you as a failure type deal. So like that stuff just go neck and neck. Those two is like 1A, 1B. And that's another thing that we tend to lie to ourselves about. We always we telling ourselves that we don't care what people think. We don't care what others think. For the most part, that tends to be a lie. Most people do care what others think. It takes a lot. It takes a lot, man, of like mental training to get past that, to be able to just operate and not care what certain people think. I feel like now I finally reached that point to where I really legit don't care what people think in regards to the moves that I make. But for the longest, it was hard for me to overcome that. For the longest, every time I made a move, I just considered how would such and such think about this? How would my mom think about this? How would my pops feel about this? How would my brother, how would my sister, how would they feel about this? How would my family feel about this? For the most part, it was just family for me. I didn't care about like other people on the outside. I never really cared about them. But it was more so immediate fam. Like I feel like, man, all right, if I do this, then they gonna view me a certain type of way. I don't want to have awkward moments around my fam. So I was caught up in that for the longest. Now I'm at a place right now, I'm at a point in my life to where I don't even care what they think. I respect them, I love them, but like I gotta make moves for myself. So I feel like now I done reached that point to where I legit don't care what anybody thinks. I'm going to do what I need to do. I'm going to do what I feel is best for me because I know myself better than anybody else. So now I feel like I reached that point. It took me 29 years, but now I feel like I'm here. And that's a hard pill to swallow. That's a hard fear to overcome, but that's one that you must overcome. Like at the end of the day, I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's your mother. I don't care if it's your father. Like you gotta not care what they think. And you cannot let them dictate how you should move in life. You can't let that happen. Yeah, they raised you, but now you a grown man, you a grown woman. It's time for you to make the moves that you know that you need to make. It's time for you. It's time for you to pave the way for yourself. It's time for you to pave a way. You got to stop letting other people pave the way for you. You got to stop letting other people dictate your reality, dictate the moves that you should make. You got to exercise some control and power over your life. You got to stop being characters and pawns in other people's game and whatnot. You got to stop that. You got to write your own story, write your own book. What we say, write your history in advance. You a character in someone else's story. You got to stop being that. You got to stop being that. And when you care about what other people think, then you start moving according to how you think they think. And that may be, they may not even think the way that you think they think. And sometimes that's how we move. We move based off of how we think they feel about us, how we think they feel about the move we gonna make. And that may not even be a reality. Sean, peace. What's going on with you? So that's something that we got to overcome, and I feel like that's one thing that you really got to overcome that. And I feel like at some point everybody has to overcome that fear because I feel like that is a fear that everybody has up to a certain point. Like when you young, when you a child, for the most part, you care what people around you are thinking. So that's something that you just have to break. That's a habit that you're gonna have to break. And I feel like at some point everybody has to break that habit. At some point, everybody gonna have to break that habit. You're gonna have to stop. You're gonna have to stop worrying about what your moms think. You're gonna have to stop worrying about what your pops think, what your sister think, what your brother think, what your uncle, aunt. You're gonna have to stop worrying about what they think. See, when we a child, you looking for that approval. And it's cool. But at some point, when you grow older, when you become an adult, when you mature, you got to break that chain. You got to break that grip. You got to break that grip. Once you break that grip, you almost gonna be invincible at that moment. Because again, when you stop worrying about what other people think about you, and when you're not afraid to fail, like those two things, when you're not afraid to fail and you don't care what other people think about you, there is no stopping you. There is no stopping you. There is no stopping you. When you lose that fear of failure, when you no longer care about what people think about you, you're unstoppable at that point. You're going to manifest whatever it is that you need to manifest at that particular point. At that particular point, when you realize, when you start living out those two realities, you're about to manifest everything that you need to manifest in your life. Like point blank, period. But y'all, I'm finna wrap it up, man. Like I said, I had a quick video that I wanted to do today. Gave myself about 35, 40 minutes. I got a client that I got to get ready to train, man. So it's about to get real in the field, real in the gym. So tuning in for this spontaneous video, man. Y'all can rewind it back, get the 5 steps. Hopefully, you all took some jewels from this and y'all can implement these 5 steps to overcome whatever it is that you may fear in life. But I'm out, y'all. Got to get this gym ready. Appreciate y'all as always. Appreciate the donations. Appreciate the love and the interaction and the dialogue. Y'all take it easy. Y'all enjoy the rest of this Tuesday. Again, I'm gonna probably holler at y'all tomorrow with some more motivation and inspiration. Y'all be easy. Y'all be peaceful. All right, y'all, I'm out. Peace.